A week in the life of me reading books. Hi, I'm a lady named Dee. I am an avid reader, podcaster, wannabe writer. I'm working on it. I figure on top of my little reels and my little TikToks and whatnot and Instagram posts, I mostly live on Instagram. I want to do like little reading vlogs. I initially wanted to start the year off doing a read along for Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Meyer, but I read that in a day, and depending on the book, I usually tend to do that. So I also normally tend to read many books concurrently, like at the same time. So like right now I'm listening to Vampires of El Norte, which I'm about 75% done with. I like it so far. Like, I more than like it, but less than love it. That's where I'm at with it right now. It is a slow burn romance, which I generally do not like unless it makes sense. And in this case, it makes sense, but it makes sense in like the most frustrating way possible. I'll get into that when I wrap that little story up. But so far, I do like it. I like the way it's written, it's well written, and I like the perspective in which it's written from. But I'll also get that into that in the wrap up or whatever. So I'm gonna start The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. Technically, I started it already because when I finished The Final Empire, I, sometimes they have like the preview of the next book. So I kind of read the preview of the next book, but I think I'm going to go over that. But I also think that I am going to tackle, for the sake of this video, just in case I finish The Well of Ascension quicker than I expect to, I think I'm also going to go back into. Can't find it. It was here. It's somewhere over here. I have a lot of books. Ooh, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon, because I really did like The Prairie of the Orange Tree, and I started that. It's really interesting. It's really long, so I thought, oh, you know what? I might do a read along for that. I'm gonna do a read along for A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon on Storygraph. I'm not saying I'm trying to get rid of Goodreads, but I'm trying to make Storygraph my main book tracker. So I'm gonna get all that information together by the time I put this video up. But I'm gonna do a read along for A Day of Fallen Night on Storygraph. So if you want to read that along with me, that's gonna be a little bit of a casual pace reading, because I'm more focused on reading The Well of Ascension than anything this month. I actually want to finish with the first Mistborn era arc this month. That's my goal for this month. But I think A Day of Fallen Night, yeah, I want to do that. I'm gonna get into that. But for the sake of right now, I need to add that to Bookly, because I'm also using Bookly to track my reading. I'm doing a whole bunch of different things right now. Initially, at the beginning of the year, Storygraph's gonna be my main check, but I want to see if I can incorporate Bookly in that. And I do like that it has like a session timer, so that's really what I'm looking for. But I think I'm gonna add that to that, because yeah, so that's gonna be my current lineup. I want to add one more book into the mix, but not right now, because I want to see how I do with what I'm trying to do. I think I'm also going to try to tackle Saga Volume 1 this week, this month. I don't know though, because I think I also have the Static Shock. Yeah, I'm going to figure that out. But right now, I'm about to start Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. I'm going to start from chapter 1 again and eat my lunch. And yeah, there we go. Ooh, alright, so. Alright. Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, so. Or maybe. There we go. Yeah. So, finish the first chapter in about 11 minutes, and Everything is a refresher. I actually did decide to use the feature where you keep track of characters because I remember a lot of characters from the previous book, but I did not fully, like, there's characters that were mentioned that I'm like, what role did they serve the last book? I remember their name. I know they were part of the crew, but what was their role? So I did start doing that. I hope I'm gonna focus. I don't know. Well, I guess we could test this out. So it says reading the same at the same pace that I'm reading now. I will finish the book in 19 hours, 36 minutes, and 39 seconds. So let's see how many hours it actually takes me to read this book. I added six characters. Six characters were mentioned in chapter one. I spend about a minute and a half per page, and I read about 41.2 pages per hour according to this reading session. And I read 8 pages. Oh, and then my favorite quote from chapter one would have to be power she appreciated, for she well knew what it was like to lack. But all right, so that's what I have so far. I'll be back. I gotta get back to doing what I do. All right, so it's late, but before I end my day, I kind of wanted to talk about what I've been reading thus far and how I'm feeling about it. I did end up starting The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, and so far I'm liking it as a sequel. I'm about 15% through this book. I like the excerpts from the Lord Ruler's era from his companion's point of view, because there are things that were left unanswered in the first book. Specifically, how the Lord Ruler went from being a hero to a tyrant. I think what I like about this book so far, as I'm getting into it, is that there's more of a focus on the fallout from the rebellion. A lot of times the book ends at, they rebelled or there was a revolution and they rode off into the sunset. And very rarely do you find books whose main focus is not just the rebellion itself, but also the fallout from the rebellion. So we're getting a lot of like infighting. What are they going to do? How do the Sky people who have been discriminated against and disenfranchised, how do they move forward? Because now they're in a different position and they're out of their normal routine that's literally been beat into them. But it's a lot of that, and then it's a lot of guilt and questioning from the main characters that helped with this revolution. Did they do the right thing? They're the reason for a lot of the fallout that is coming, and was it necessary? At the end of the day, was it all worth it? I like how these questions are coming about, so I'm looking forward to see what our little crew has in store for us. I'm really interested in the Well of Ascension because it was mentioned in the Final Empire, but we didn't. It's like a vague metaphor idea. Like they mention it, but not much is known about it, and I'm pretty sure that is by design. Similarly to how all the religions and stuff have been eradicated and stuff like that. So I'm interested in seeing what's going on. I think I'm gonna start another book tomorrow, but yep, that's all I have for y'all tonight. It's Thursday. I'm super excited. I finished my first audiobook for the year. I did finish The Vampires. Well, I keep putting there's no the. Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas, and I love that book. It's a really good book. It's so well written. It is so beautifully written. Like she just has a way, like she's a very literary type of writer, and a girl can appreciate that. For the most part, I'm a get to the point type of chick. I think that's why I kind of like the type of books that I like. Like my ideal book is a fantasy novel with a lot of action, romance, and deep commentary, like deep social commentary. I love fantasy books with deep social. I feel like that is the beauty of the fantasy genre. They're able to get their point across in a way that is palatable to everybody, in a way that everybody can kind of relate to. I love this book. I would give this a 5-star rating. I want to give this a 5-star rating, but what I'm probably going to end up giving it is a 4.75 rating or whatever. I have to knock off. Okay, and I can't really say it is the author's fault, but marketing this book. I would have never marketed this book as a horror novel. When I went through the reviews for this book, for whatever reason, I went through the reviews for this book like a quarter into reading this. But all the reviews of this book, a lot of people that did not give this a higher rating, their criticism was the lack of vampires and just overall wasn't horror. And in the beginning, I wanted to make the argument that the horror genre is not just about jump scares. But the further I got into this book, I realized that these people have a point. The point is that while this book has horror themes and while it's more of a gothic horror type book, I personally felt like it was more of a romance novel with gothic horror themes. So primarily it was a romance novel, and that's how I would have sold it. They kind of sold it as a horror novel with romance themes, when for real, somebody said the vampires were a subplot. I wouldn't even say the vampires were a subplot. You could have taken the vampires out of this book and the story still would have ended up the exact same. The vampires were just there, and while they did serve a purpose, and I liked how they were used metaphorically, like, it's not a horror book. It just isn't. Like I said, I would classify it as a gothic romance novel with horror themes. Yeah, but overall, I really enjoyed the book. It was well written. I definitely recommend that you read it, but don't read it thinking you gonna get like vampires galore or jump scares and stuff like that. There are some moments it was like a little tense, but I can only tell like 2 times in that whole book was like moments, like there were moments that were a little tense. The primary story focused around the romance, the 2 main characters, and to be quite honest, those characters were well written because I had some feelings, and I'm gonna do something on Instagram about my feelings about that whole novel. I don't know. I wonder what's gonna go up first, this video or that rant that I'm gonna go on. But despite the rant, despite my gripe, overall, I would still, like, that really is a 5-star book. It is not a horror book. Like, if you're going into that book thinking that you're gonna be scared and like, no, you're not gonna feel those scary feelings. What you're gonna be is frustrated, and I'm gonna get into that. But overall, it was a good book. It was well written. She's one of those writers where if they announce that she has a book coming out, I'm probably gonna pick it up and read it and take my chances. So far, she's 2 out of 2 for me. But yeah, now I have to go through the struggle of figuring out what's the next audiobook that I'm going to read. I love audiobooks. I suggest that if you are going to get into audiobooks or you've been struggling with audiobooks, 1, pick a genre that you actually enjoy, and 2, sample the audiobook because the narrator literally will make or break a book. Like, there are some books that I love but cannot listen to the audiobook. To be quite honest, Harry Potter is one of them, but I've gotten to the point where me and the narrator of that book is okay. But you know what? Instead of remaking the Harry Potter movies into a show, what they should do is redo the audiobook but make it like a full cast production. That is a great idea. And if y'all do that, hit me up for it, because I can definitely lend my voice to voice acting. Today I plan to read half of The Wells of Ascension, and then I'm going to spend some time reading Legends and Latte because Vampires of El Norte was kind of heavy. Whatever audiobook I pick next is probably going to be a little heavy. And Wells of Ascension is kind of heavy, so I need a little cozy in my life. I've come to understand that I am not really a fan of the romantasy genre. Like, there are books that I like in the romantasy genre, but they're completely, utterly smut. I love smut. All in all, I can only take that in doses. I like fantasy books that have romance in them, but I don't like romantasy books. I don't like the central focus to be the romance. But I do feel like romance is like a natural part of life in general. I don't care what universe you're in. Romance is always going to serve like a part in that. So it's only natural to have romance in a fantasy book, but I don't like when the romance is the central focus. Like, it can serve a purpose in the book, like, you know, forbidden love, etc., etc. But I don't want that forbidden love to be the central purpose. I want the dragons and the political unrest and all that to be the focus and the action. Like, I need the action. Give me the action. With a little sprinkle of some cayenne chili peppers on there. But no, smut serves a purpose. But I'm already going over what I want to do for this. But yeah, that's what I'm going to focus on today. I might do a little check-in on where I'm at with Legends and Lattes and the Wells of Ascension. But so far, you know, I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Brandon Sanderson, like, I see why you're so hyped up. So I figured out what audiobook the next two audiobooks that I'm going to listen to. I actually already started Big Witch Energy by Molly Harper, and then I realized that it is a part of a series, and I think I knew this when I downloaded it, but forgot because it's been sitting in my Audible library for so long. So the first book is Witches Get Stuff Done, and luckily for me, it's appearing as if it's one of those types of series where you don't have to read the first book, or you don't have to read the books in order to understand things. There's certain things you might miss with certain characters, but overall, as for the plot for this story, I'm not really missing much from not having read the first book. But and at this point, I'm so far into the first book that it doesn't even matter. Not that it doesn't matter. I'm so far in this book that it is pointless for me to stop reading this book just to go back to the first book and listen to that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish Big Witch Energy and then circle back to Witches Get Stuff Done. Molly Harper is an author that I really enjoy her books. They're nice little cozy. I love cozy reads. I love the word cozy. But they're nice little cozy reads. They're interesting. I also started reading Legends and Lattes, and I can tell that I get when they say it's like low stakes type of book. I'm really early into it. I think I've only read the first chapter thus far. I'm going to read a chapter of The Well of Ascension, but I am also going to finish off my night reading Legends and Lattes. I'm enjoying it so far. And then whichever book I finish first, once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and start the restart. I'm probably just gonna, I started reading it, but I'm probably just gonna restart the whole thing from the beginning because it's been a while since I've touched this. But the Atlas Paradox is next on my MBR. Maybe I might read it. Maybe I'll be in a mood to read something else. Some point this weekend, I'm gonna try to read the Saga graphic novel, the volume 1 of Saga, or Sandman. I'm still, like I said, I'm a mood reader. I gotta be in a mood to do stuff. But one of those, I'm gonna start one of the graphic novels or comic this weekend. Oh yeah, so I was gonna do my little Vampires of El Norte rant on Instagram, but then I realized it was gonna be a little too long. So if you don't want spoilers into that book, I'm gonna really get into why I had to take a star away. Like, no, I'm not gonna get into that because that's pretty much explanatory. The reason why I took a star away from that book is because, for me personally, like, this is not a reflection on anything else because, like I said, I love that book. That book at the end of the year is probably going to be one of my favorite reads of the year. It's up there. I really did enjoy that book. However, I did have that gripe with it. It was mismarketed. It's marketed in the wrong genre, and I think that does the book a disservice because if you market something as a particular thing, it doesn't matter how good it is, and that book is amazing. It doesn't matter how good it is. If you went into that book expecting to read about scary vampires, like terrorizing people, you're going to be disappointed. That's my gripe on that. But other than that, I'm going to do my little spoiler gripe because I really love that book. Whew. No. I really love that book, but the main character got on my nerves. I feel like there's a point in which somebody offers you an apology and this person had a valid reason for doing what they did, literally a big misunderstanding, but the person that they're apologizing to is just like committed to like standing in the ignorance, standing in their feelings. Well, I feel like this, I feel like that. Like, you're entitled to your feelings. But if somebody's apologizing about something and it was literally a big misunderstanding, then I don't feel like you should spend most of the book mistreating them, like, and just hurting their feelings because of this misunderstanding. You gotta read the book. But I felt like I felt that strongly about it, which means it was a good book because, oh, like I said, overall, I love that book. I definitely recommend anybody read that book. If you love gothic romance books and you want to, it has like a sprinkle of horror, a little bit of suspense, but for the most part, it's like a love story. I feel like it's like Gone with the Wind a little bit. Matter of fact, yeah, that's what that book reminded me a lot of, Gone with the Wind. Now that I said that, the similarities are chilling because Gone with the Wind was a book in which I like the female protagonist. Despite Scarlett O'Hara being Scarlett O'Hara, like, I actually did like Scarlett O'Hara. I just spent the majority of Gone with the Wind wanting to shake her. I think I read Gone with the Wind when I was like 12 or 13, and I spent the majority of that book wanting to be like, yo, like, stop. That is literally what I spent the majority of Vampires of El Norte doing, like wanting to shake the main character, like, stop. Give him a break. Like, some of these male protagonists, some of these love interests be deserving all the smoke, but I feel like strongly in this case that Nestor did not deserve the treatment that he got. And yeah, that's definitely a book worth checking out. But that's all I got for today. I'm about to get to reading and resting because I really do feel like I'm getting sick, so I should probably turn it in early tonight. But see you next time.